Hello my dear guest. Today I want to share with you the features that were added in ecmascript 2020. This video will be useful for people who have been developing for a long time and didn't upgrade skills also for a long time. I will be talking about big integer, nullish coalescing, optional chaining, Promise.allSettled, global this for in order, dynamic import, module namespace export, and import meta. So let's start with the most useful one. It will be big integer. So in JavaScript we have a problem. Let's type const biggest number. And the biggest number in JavaScript, we can get it via number max save integer. And if you console log it, we'll have like this number, but actually the biggest number is +1. So the problem that we are facing in JavaScript world, if we try to do biggest number at, we cannot use const, we should use let, and we are adding +3, and now it should be 94, but in reality it will be 92. And it doesn't matter how many we will add, +1, it will be always 92. So the solution to it, that was added big integer. We have two different types how we can convert number to this big integer. The first one is pretty easy. We will use constructor BigInt, and let's just pass our number. In this case, when we run it, you can see it changed to 98. So we can have much bigger numbers. Another solution will be also, if we take this number, how we can convert just number to this BigInt, const biggest number 2. We just need to add n in the end, and it's valid JavaScript. Here is some caveats that you need to remember. If we write type of our biggest number, it will be not a number, it will be BigInt. So it has some problems, because if we take, for example, and write console log 1n, that is BigInt, equals to n, to 1, we'll have false, because it's different types. So big integer is different from a number. This is just for you to keep in mind. So if you will have a problem with this comparison, you remember that it's different types, and because it was done because it's not backwards compatible. So all the numbers that were before 2020, it's not backwards compatible with this new BigInt. That's why they add this n in the end. But it will be useful if you are working especially with banking or some big numbers. And it will be useful probably on backend more than on the frontend JavaScript. Another one is a great addition. It will be nullish coalescing. So we have in JavaScript there is another problem. For example, we have constant 0 that is equals to 0. And then we want to have default number, for example. And and let's name it not a 0 but a number. And this is actually a problem. So if you want to set up default, you can use this OR, and it will be like 10. But in case of 0, it's actually false value. And if we run it, let's console log it, you will get 10, but 0 is actually a valid number. So there is a solution. It was added Nullish coalescing. In this case, we will get 0. With Nullish coalescing, everything, it just checks if number is not null or undefined. Defined. So if we change our number to null, we will get 10. And if we change to undefined, we will get also 10. But if we change to 0, we will get 0. So it's kind of nice addition, and it can be much more bigger. For example, you know that empty string is a nullish value, and in case false is actually a value, but it's falsy value. So when we have false or 10, it will be usually 10, but with nullish coalescing, it will be false. And you will use it all the time. It's quite useful feature to have in your toolbox as a JavaScript developer. Another one is optional chaining, and it's so great actually. So imagine you having an object from the backend and it's empty, but in your code you have object number, for example. And when you try to run this code, again, number SDF. And when you try to run this code, you will get error. And your code will crash. And it's not very good. And it's usually when you get an object from the backend, and it's in some edge cases that the tester will send back to you. So there is optional chaining, and it's a great addition. So if you can check if there is no value, then you can specifically tell the JavaScript engine that do not crash. Because if there is no value, it will just default to undefined. And the biggest, so when will you actually use it? So, you know, like console X, you have a lot of objects, let's say. And now, when you try to find an object in this, let's say const find object, and here it doesn't matter, but we will return x5. I mean, yeah, it's not good programming, but yeah, let's name it into YG. And in this case, it will be undefined. And then in code, you will have find object, and you want to access some property of this object, like, no, age. And it will crash. It will what you usually have. But now with optional chaining, you can first it will not crash, and then you can use like default value, nullish coalescing, and say like 99, and it will be valid code. So this is great addition, and also this optional chaining is working with previous objects, so with arrays in way. So now if you have like 2, yeah, oh yeah, I forgot to put, it will not crash, it will just return undefined. And the last, you can run it with functions. So imagine that x will be an object, and there should be some kind of function here. But there is no function, and if we run code like this, it will crash. But now, if we add optional, not here, but here, optional chaining, And when we try to run it, your application will not crash. So it's quite useful. Another one is Promise.allSettled. So JavaScript has a lot to do with promises, and it's quite useful, but there was nothing that will allow you to check if promises were all settled and you didn't care if somebody was rejected or not fulfilled. So now JavaScript will help you with this, with Promise.allSettled. So imagine we have 3 promises, and 1 will reject and 2 will be fast and slow. And we actually do not care. We just need to know that all of them were settled, and we will just get the result from what we need. Even if the promise will be rejected, we're okay with it. And when we run this Promise.allSettled, you will see that there is no errors. Second, it will give you the status of the promises and the values. So what you can do is, if you don't need, if you want to have like success promises, what you can do, you can just filter. And return promise that doesn't have status rejected. And let's console log success promises. And you have, we don't need data. And you can filter the data that you need. But the main point here is it will be successful as long as all promises are fulfilled, no matter if they are rejected or they are successful. Another one is global this. So there is one problem. If we are talking about JavaScript, it can be used cross-platform. It can be used on the back end, it can be used on the front end. And there is one problem with global object, because on Node, like here, I need to console log. Global is your object, global object. Global. Yeah, but when we are talking about, let's say, about browser, it has different name. It calls window. So now with this global this, you can write cross-platform code if you need a global environment. Just keep in mind that it's not very good practice to use globals in your project, but there are some edge cases when you need to use them. And now, if you're writing the cross-platform application, you know that you should use global this, and everything will work very good in your application. Another is for in order. This is just to know. In JavaScript, it was added that we have this syntax for in, and previously it wasn't specified the order of how it should work, but the browser implemented it in correct way. With this ecmascript for in order, they just said that it should work consistently on all browsers. So this is just for you to know that you can be sure when you're writing for in order, everything will be the same on all browsers. Another addition will be dynamic import. This will be useful if you want a tree shaking of your application. So in some cases, you will want to write if x equals then 0, then load some module, import, and let's say test.js as A5. And in this case, it works. It actually loads as a module, but it's dynamic. If you don't need, if there will be some other comparison, it will not load. And the next one is quite useful, but you're probably using TypeScript, but it was added in JavaScript 2020. We have import, like the syntax import, like import everything as, I don't know, my module, test module, from, and then you pass the name of the module, test.js. We had with import, and we have the same now with export. This is just for you to know. And the last but not least is you can actually have a meta import of the file. So import data. The only useful use case that I can think about it is when you need to load from the same package, because now you can. So what does it do? And let's console import meta. Yeah. So you will have an object with an URL. So you can access this URL, and you get you can manipulate this URL and get everything. Like if you need from this JS tutorials package, you can load any file from it. But this is with manipulation. Probably you will not work with every day. Yeah. So that's it. And remember, work is not everything in your life. Have a great day. Bye.